Okay, let's get started. Thank you for letting me take a week off last week. Yay, it was kind of fun. I got to do nothing, okay? We were supposed to go to the cabin, and with my teenager kids, Cheyenne was like, I don't want to go. It's too boring, and I want to be with my friends and lay out in the sun. And Dusty's like, I want to play basketball. So we stayed home and did nothing. So that was really, really fun. So I could have actually taught, but I'm glad we didn't. Good morning. Okay, what else was I going to tell you about? 2 weeks ago we talked about Peter, and we talked about how for Peter he had to step out and do something, and so I realized that God was not going to make me a size 2 unless I actually did something about it. So thank you to Peter telling me that when we did that lesson. So I decided that I would go back on Weight Watchers, and I lasted for 3 days. And then I went to the movies. And so I walked out of the theater after I had my big thing of Dr. Pepper and my whole thing of peanut M&Ms. And I was laughing because I told Erin, I said, Erin, I think that my body just talked to me. And she's like, what do you mean? And it just yelled and said, would you make up your mind? Are we on Weight Watchers or are we not on Weight Watchers? Okay, because you were feeding me bananas and strawberries. And then suddenly I see this big gulp of Dr. Pepper coming down the pipe with it just not working. So I decided that I'm allowed 26 points on Weight Watchers, and 46 is your extra day. And so I've been walking 3 miles a day, but I've been eating 46 points. So it's kind of not working, just to let you know that. So, but anyway, I read this funny thing the other day, and it said, it's too bad that we can't put ourselves in the clothes dryer for 10 minutes. And when we come out, we would be wrinkle-free and 3 sizes smaller. I thought that was kind of cute. Okay, still no baby. She was due last Friday. Shayla did not, she's pretty much going nuts because she wants to get this baby out and nothing's happening. So I thought it was really funny. If you look on the very last page of your handout, somebody did that for Micah. They said, I wonder what the baby's going to look like. That has to be the funniest picture. Shayla was like, that is so creepy on lots of accounts. Okay? And I really hope that's not what my baby comes out and looks like. So I thought that was funny. She has a really bad back. And so I told, I asked Dusty, whatever kid he is, Micah. I said, is Shayla going to get an epidural? And he said, yes, we both are. And so I just pictured them both, 2 hospital beds with epidurals. So he's kind of funny. Okay, for those of you that are watching us on Roku, if you want to get the handouts, they are online. All you have to do is go to connectingthedotsministries.com, and that's where you'll find anything you want to know about the ministry, and also the handouts are also on there too. And then you can follow along with us. So, okay, we are working our way through the Gospel of Luke. If you are new, we're glad you're here today. Our theme is kind of like the words and the life of Jesus that will change our lives. So once we get those words into us, then God is able to change us. Hebrews 4:12 is a passage that we like to talk about. It says that the Bible is alive and active and living. So when we study God's word, which is what we do here, it's so that he can change us from the inside out. And when he changes us, that means it's going to change our relationships, our marriages, how we view life, because if you are here and you're having a really rough time in your life right now, if you don't have God added into that equation, then you're going to be a mess versus someone who says, I just know God is in control. So as we read the Bible, those are the things that happen. It changes us from the inside out. So 2 weeks ago when we left, Jesus had just got done. He was in Capernaum. And he was teaching Peter a few lessons along with all of us about fishing. And so today he moves on. He said, I'm not going to stay in Capernaum because it's my job to go preach everywhere, which is what he's doing. So now he's in another city. And today we're going to come in contact. He's going to come in contact with a leper. And so I want to talk about leprosy and how that's going to affect our lives today, which doesn't seem like it does, but in a weird sense it does. We are going to be exactly in one verse today. So, Rob, it was so funny the other day. He said, how long is it going to take you to get through Luke? And I said, well, normally probably if we do, like we've been doing this a year and we're to chapter, 5? So I said probably another like 2 or 3 years. But if I do one verse every week, then apparently I will probably die before we get done. So hopefully that's not going to happen. But today I want to just hit on one verse and then we're going to finish it next week because we're going to kind of go off on a little tangent thing today. So Luke 5:12 in your handout, the first verse. While he was in one of the cities, behold, there was a man covered with leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face and implored him, saying, Lord, if you are willing, can you make me clean? Now, what we do here is we take a section of verses and we try to figure out what that means and how that can apply to our life. But today, because we're going to see lepers all through the Bible, Jesus is going to come in contact with them a lot. And when he does, I want us to have a picture of exactly what leprosy was like in the time and the culture that they lived into. So let's talk about it. I wrote it out. Hopefully, I cannot remember what I put in your handout. Hopefully it says leprosy, Driscoll's sermon. Okay. And we'll just read that because this was from his sermon. It made the most sense so that you can understand when this man comes to Jesus, this is what he was like. Leprosy was a horrendously debilitating, painful skin condition. It starts with red open sores that become porous. This causes great discomfort and pain. You don't want to bathe because the open sores and wounds are so incredibly painful. Over time, this can also cause serious nerve damage, and the result being that if you burn yourself while cooking or injure yourself while working, you don't feel it. And so people would live many years. There are some ancient records of people lasting upwards of 20 years suffering continually with leprosy. But because you would hit your hand or your foot, things of that nature, eventually you would start losing appendages and limbs because you were numb and desensitized. Okay, we're not talking just, I got a cold and I'm going to get better. We're talking something that is so debilitating and so life-changing that your whole life would, in one moment, change in that particular day. So if you woke up in the morning and you thought you had leprosy, you would go to the priest. He would declare, yes, you have leprosy, and now you are moved out of your home, you're moved out of your whole comfort zone, and you are stuck into a community with lepers for the rest of your life. Okay, so this was a bad, bad deal. So I want to put that in context to you and I. It would be like you would wake up on a Saturday morning and you're all excited. You're like, yay, my husband made me coffee. The aroma's wonderful. Nice sleep last night. The kids were so excited for today. We have a soccer tournament. You know, your daughter's dance recitals today. You're going out to dinner with your husband. You're going to go to a movie tonight. And then tomorrow morning, you're going to get up and go to church. And you're like, yay, I'm so excited. It's going to be the greatest day. And then you get up and you look in the mirror and you see something that is going to destroy your entire world, and you know that for that moment, and it's just one of those things that when we look at leprosy in the Bible, you don't think about it, but it's a game changer in life. It changes everything, and this is what this man was going to. Now, it's not like, hi, I got the chicken pox, and it's just going to last a while. It's like forever. It's for forever thing. So when we see leprosy, now you're going to understand why this is such a big deal. Now, as we read the story, I want us to feel what he feels. And I think when a person looks in the mirror and says, oh my gosh, I have leprosy, there's one feeling that I think that comes across, and that would be utter hopelessness. Like it's hopeless. There's nothing I can do. And I was thinking about that in modern day times. Like it would be, I just felt this big lump in my breast, and now I found out it's cancer. Okay, it's a life changer for you. If you were looking through your husband's text and found out he's been having an affair and you didn't know it, life changer. Okay, your child's a drug addict. He hasn't been home for 3 years, and the policeman's knocking at your door, and you just know it's that moment of just everything's never going to be the same anymore. And it's like the job that, they're downsizing. The dream of having a child and it's a negative test again. The words autism, Down syndrome, cystic fibrosis. I mean, all of these things, when you hear it, it's just like that gut-wrenching, my life is never going to be the same. And that is what this man is going through that has a leprosy. So if you contacted leprosy, now you're banished from your home. So no more wife, no more husband, no more kids, no more games, nothing. It's all over with. And not only that, but everyone doesn't like you. Like no one wants to be around you. They're fearful of you. They yell at you. They throw rocks at you. They tell you to leave. Okay, so the time in your life when you need someone the most is the time now when everyone runs away because they're fearful of you. Okay, so imagine the feeling that these people have. And the worst part to me is that these were very religious people. These are the religious people that should have been the ones that came along and helped and were loving, but they weren't. And so it's kind of like if you came in contact with a leper, then you couldn't even go to church because of what you just came in contact with them. And so it ruins your life having them, so you want nothing to do with them whatsoever. So these are outcasts, avoided, they're spurned, they're yelled at. You can just feel the picket signs outside, the church, like, don't allow lepers in here. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing. And it seems really silly to be talking about leprosy. But I got a letter last week from one of the girls, Donna, that comes to Bible study here. And it kind of just rocked my whole world because I started thinking, we don't have to deal with leprosy, but there's a lot of people in your life and my life that we scream leper. And I want to talk about that for a second. She sent me this email. You have it in your thing. We're just going to read it. It's a lot of reading today. I hate doing that. I want to make sure you have it in front of you because if someone reads to me, this is me. Okay, I would fall asleep. So I don't want you to do that. So you can read along here. But this is what Donna sent me. It said, meet Patricia and Chris, a middle-aged couple without a job, without a car, without food, without money, without a home, and without a hope that things will change. As I was walking my Jericho this morning, that's a whole other post, I was on my 7th circle when I saw a couple walking toward the building with a shopping cart. As I turned the corner, I saw them go behind to an enclosed covered patio, and that was once a dinner club that is now vacant and for sale. I am familiar with the building, and I knew exactly where they were headed. Meet Patricia and Chris. They are homeless. I introduced myself as no one in particular, just someone who took notice and cared enough to ask if they were okay and if there was anything I could do to help. They were very kind and receptive as I spoke of the description that so many people feel today and how so many have lost hope. I shared the truth about how much God loves them. As I spoke, the tears welled up in their eyes. They were full of gratitude. Chris said he had never had anyone approach him in the 6 years he had been homeless and asked if he was okay or offer any help. He was so thankful. I hadn't given them anything. All I had given them were words of compassion and encouragement. All I had given them was hope. Meet Patricia and Chris. They just want someone to care enough. They do not have a home or anywhere to stay. Patricia said she owned a home at one time. They are unable to work as they no longer have Social Security cards as they have been lost over the years. They could apply for new cards, but that requires an address, but they don't have one. They want to work, but they don't know where or how. Meet Patricia and Chris. They need work. I asked about whether they thought about going to a shelter or somewhere like the Dream Center. They had, and they tried, but because they are not legally married, they would not be allowed to stay together. To get by each day, they panhandle. They don't beg, they just ask. They are asking for just enough to get a room for the night so they get out of the cold in the shower. Since not being married had presented itself as a problem, I told them I knew a pastor that would marry them. Patricia looked down and smiled with a slight chuckle of, yeah, right. So I turned to Chris and asked if that was even a possibility. He didn't hesitate in his response, and he said, I've wanted to marry her since the very first day we met. Meet Patricia and Chris. They need a place to sleep at night, a place to call home. Where I met Patricia and Chris was not in downtown or South Phoenix. It wasn't in a park or in a rough area of town. I met them in an upscale northwest community of the valley, some of the finest hotels and restaurants on the same street full of people coming and going, walking by their way to the spring training baseball field, vacationing, enjoying the beautiful Arizona weather. I wondered, is it possible that as they walked past that no one noticed them pushing her shopping cart with the few belongings they owned, or their sun-scorched faces from being unsheltered for so long? Meet Patricia and Chris. They are real. They are living amongst us. How is it that we do not see them? When we begin to see the world through his eyes then, and only then will we see Patricia and Chris. Brandon Heath wrote lyrics, give me your eyes for just 1 second. Give me your eyes so I can see everything that I keep missing. Give me your love for humanity. Give me your arms for the brokenhearted, the ones far beyond my reach. Give me your heart for the once forgotten. Give me your eyes so I can see. I don't know who will read this, but God does. I don't know how I can or we can help, but God does. What I do know for sure is that God wanted me to meet Patricia and Chris, and that I promised them when I left that I wasn't leaving them. I told them I would be back and that I would find a way to help them. I told them I didn't know how, but that God did. I gave them all I had to give and gave them my phone number so that they could reach me. Patricia called this morning. I missed the call as I was at Bible study. The voice was, Donna, I just want to thank you. We were able to get a room for the night. Please let us know if you found a way that you can help us. Caller ID, the Motel 6, time of call, checkout, 11 a.m. Okay, so this was a couple weeks ago. She sent that to me, and it dawned on me when she sent that first, on so many levels, I was frustrated, okay, and frustrated with me, because this couple right here has been here for 6 years, and they're living in Sky, out of Sky right here. So we're talking 3 doors down from us, okay, in the heart of this. And why have I never seen them? And why have I never stopped? And that made me really mad at myself. And then it dawned on me what my problem was. A long time ago, many, many years ago, Rob and I got involved with a homeless shelter down in the middle of Phoenix. And our heart was for the homeless people, because I know, just like Patricia and Chris, that it's very difficult once something happens to even be able to get out of that whole scene. Like she said, you can't get a driver's license. You can't get all these different cards. You just can't get them. You've lost everything. You find yourself homeless. It's a nightmare. Okay, so we had this passion to help them. So we went down there. We bought a little restaurant. It was when we had money. And we bought this little restaurant on the corner of 5th and Adams. And we were going to call it Holy Smoke Barbecue. Okay, cutest name ever. So, but our point is that when homeless people needed a job, we wanted to be there to help them get back into society, get a job. So this was our passion at the time. And as we got to know these people at the shelter, we became more and more and more frustrated, because I can think of, out of the 100, let's say, people that lived at this shelter, I can, in my mind, think of 2 that actually wanted out. And the rest were just there using the system, and they wanted whatever. So I am very cynical. And when I got Donna's letter, I was even more cynical. I was like, yeah, whatever, okay. To me, a lot of people are playing the game, and it really frustrated me that I felt that way. We met a couple people there. We had a lady that she wanted to work, but here's the problem. I need a job, but I have no way to get there. So we found this little tiny car, so we helped her get into this car. I laugh now because she was diagnosed with, I don't remember the movie Sybil, where you have all the different personalities. Okay, I thought it was schizophrenia, but someone told me it was some different name. So whatever it was that she had. So anyway, she had this car, and she was in the lane that only 2 people can drive in, and she got pulled over. And the cop said, you only have like 1 person in here. She says, well, not really. Like legally, like I kind of have multiple personalities, so there probably is more than 1 person in here. Okay, so that was her. But anyway, so we decided to hire her at this little restaurant, and she basically slept in, never showed up, stole money, So I'm just sick of this. I'm just like, we're trying to help, and nobody wants to be helped. Then we helped a family move up to Arrowhead area. We got him out of there. They had 4 kids. It was just kind of, and he got a job, and then, within 3 months, he's back on drugs. He's now in prison, okay? Then we went to the homeless shelter, Cass downtown, and 2 Christmases ago, and we're passing out sleeping bags, and it's just crazy down there when you do that. And these people were running up to us going, oh, I need the sleeping bag for my kids or my whatever. And so we would give it to them and watch them go throw it in a truck to go sell it. Okay, so I am sorry for my ridiculous attitude. I'm suspicious and I'm skeptical. And when I got Donna's letter, I realized how cynical I was. And I'm embarrassed to tell you, because it's kind of like, if you teach Bible, you probably shouldn't be like that. But when I see a homeless people panhandling, it honestly annoys me. And I don't want to be that way, but it's kind of like I want to just scream at them and say, get a job. Get off the drugs, quit doing, quit buying alcohol, whatever, okay? That's just me being cynical. And I realized this week when we got to this passage that a leper is anyone in our society that we want to scream at, like, get out, you're just not, worth it, or whatever the problem is, And I found myself going, that was me 2,000 years ago, screaming at this person, you're a leper, get out of my life. And I found that I was doing this with anyone that's homeless that walks by. And I had to really stop and say, God, I am so sorry, because I don't want to be that way. I want to be like Donna, who will stop and say, What can I do to help you? Because the leper was the outcast back then. And today it could be homeless. It could be, maybe it's not the homeless person. Maybe it's the drug addict. Maybe it's the alcoholic. Maybe it's someone who just can't give up an addiction and you're just, stay away from me. You're just pathetic. You can't, you won't get over it. Maybe if it's an overweight person and you're like, get some self-control. I mean, that's ridiculous. Leper. Maybe it's a homosexual. Maybe it's like you've met someone and you're like, leper. It could be anything. And so I think that we have to really sit back and say, okay, we don't worry about leprosy now, but there's a lot of other things out there that I'm just like those people. And as a believer, as a follower of Christ, what does God want me to do? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Clearly not screaming leper and yelling, get a job to someone who's homeless. It was ridiculous. Donna and I were talking, and she said, Lisa, she said, everyone is about $3,000 away from being homeless. She said, you lose your job, and now you can't make your mortgage, and you lose your home, and you can't make your car payment, and now you lose your car, and now you're on the street. And she said, and the problem is if you don't have family or friends or a safety net, where are you? You're on the streets. And then we laughed and we said, maybe the streets isn't a bad thing. Like, you don't have like car payments and you don't have to worry about anything. So maybe they got that great idea there. But I think what I want to say is that just like leprosy was a big deal and a game changer for these lives, sometimes I think if we look at the people that we come in contact with a little bit differently as Christians, as Jesus most likely looked at them, I think it would change. We have to look at them as people instead of their place in life. Like, look at a homeless person, a pole dancer, a drug addict. Maybe they were raised in an environment where they honestly can't get out and they don't know any different, okay? Are there people that use the system? I can attest to the fact that yes, there is. But I think about this. Like, here's a child, he's on welfare, his dad's an alcoholic, and his dad screams, you're a loser all your life. What is the kid going to grow up to be? Clearly, someone that's a drug addict, and he doesn't know any different. He's not been raised in an upper middle class society where he can just have whatever he wants. He doesn't know any different. Dusty tells me some crazy stuff at school. He's like, Mom, there's kids doing drugs in the back of the class. There's kids coming to school that just, smoked a bowl of pot before they got here. This one girl, got drunk last night, slept with her boyfriend, and showed up at school after, this is going, and I'm like, where are these parents? And she said, they are the ones that are providing all of this stuff for their kids. You have got to be kidding. No, that is the culture that we live in today. And so when these kids grow up and they're doing stupid stuff, we go, now it makes sense. So instead of us as Christians looking at these people like, lepers, stay away, we should be the ones like Jesus that runs to these people and say, what can I do to help you? Because that is, I think, our job as Christians. I was at Ross one time a couple years ago, and this lady, honestly, I kind of wanted to hit her. She was screaming at the top of her lungs at her child. Ugly, demeaning, mean. I've never heard anything like it in a public place in my life. And I wanted to grab the kid and run. And I realized that somewhere in her life, she saw this behavior. She doesn't know any different. Now, I can get all up in my high horse and say, how could you treat your kid like that? I'm not walking in her shoes. I don't know what her life has been like. And I think if we start looking at people instead of like, you're a leper, you're a homeless, you're this, like, God, what can I do to help this person? Because that's what you would have done if you had been here. I told Dusty, most of these kids don't even have a chance in life because nobody will take the time to say, buddy, you're making some really bad decisions. There's a good way and there's a bad way, and come to church to me. But they want to stay away. And I get that because I don't want my kid hanging around with kids like that. But I think Jesus would have run to them, and we don't because of a lot of different reasons. I think if we run to a homeless person, suddenly we have to get involved. Because I can tell you, I don't know, I haven't talked to you since then, but I'm going to assume that Donna has been involved with these people a lot. Because if you stop, suddenly they're going to be a part of your life. And I think as people and as human beings, we're kind of selfish. I'm selfish, okay? I don't want to know their problem because then I'm going to have to do something about it, and it might cost me $5, okay? So I just so appreciated your letter because it really struck a chord in me that says, Lisa, you better get a grip on this, we're not talking lepers, we're talking anyone who is a society outcast. And I don't think we talked about this too, because I said, Donna, I don't have money to give these people. I wish I did. There was a time I could have helped them better. I can't right now. So I said, tell me what I can do. And she said, Lisa, it's just a matter of just talking. They just want someone to acknowledge that they exist and that you know them and that you know that they're there and you can pray for them. I mean, we've got to come up with a way to do that. We were in Flagstaff. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. And it was getting really cold out, and Rob and I were driving back home. And we stopped at Target to get something on the way home, and there was a homeless guy walking, and his shoe was flopping, the bottom of it, So Rob goes, oh, man, I need to go give him $20. I'm like, okay. So he goes in, he hands the guy $20, and he goes, please go buy some shoes. And the guy's like, hey, thanks. Okay. Rob gets back in the car, and I said, let's just sit here and watch, because I'm not cynical or anything, but let's just watch as he walks out with the whole big bottle of Jack Daniels, okay? Because that's just my view of what this guy is going to do. And so we sat there and waited, and he never came out. And I'm like, great, he probably went out the back door. Anyway, so I said, go find out what he's doing. Rob walked back in there and did not find him in the beer Jack Daniels section, okay? He found him with a little grocery cart. He had a toothbrush, toothpaste, razors. Yeah, just stab a knife into my heart, okay? Because I must be the worst person in the world. And I was just like, how did I get so far off? Rob went to him and he said, what is the deal with your life, And he said, he had super glue too. He said, I decided not to buy some shoes. I'd buy super glue. I'll super glue them together and I'll be good to go. Okay. And I'm thinking, who does that? Okay. So Rob came out and he's telling me this, and I go, Rob, please go buy him something. So Rob went back in. He's so cute. And so he bought him some shoes and he bought him some clothes, and it was like the coolest thing ever. But when he came out, the guy was telling Rob his story. Rob sat down with him and actually had a conversation with him. The guy said, my dream is to get to Hawaii. And I was like, yeah, that's my dream too. Okay. But it's like, he said, because there's a huge homeless population and it's not cold. Like if you try to be homeless in Flagstaff, who's there at 0 degrees? It's freezing. Okay. So it made total sense, because when we did go to Hawaii, there is a huge population and he wants to get a life and get a job. And so Rob went to the teller and he took some money and he said, I don't know, this can help hopefully get you there. And it dawned on me that he took Rob's number and he said, call me if you get there. Okay, well, we've never heard from him. So here's our choices. He either was a scam, he was just using us, he was really a good liar, whatever. It could have been that. Or he could honestly have lost Rob's phone number. He's sitting in church in Hawaii, getting up saying, you know what? I was in Flagstaff and this man stopped and actually helped me. And I am here today because God saved me and used this person. Okay, so we don't know which side of that coin it's going to come down on. I don't know until I get to heaven. Hopefully we see him. But Rob and I were on a walk the other day, and we live in a place where they started building houses, but it's run down and no one goes back in this. There's streets and stuff, but no one really goes back there except motorcycles. Motorcycles like they run these long, because no one's back there, so they can run up and down. Well, there's these huge manholes, and we watch way too much like ID shows. So we're walking by, and the manhole, the covers off of it. And so I'm like, Rob, what if we look down there? It's like a dead body. It's going to be kind of creepy. So we look down, and we realize that if someone rides their motorcycle, they will be dead in a heartbeat. So Rob's looking around, and he found this thing, this cone, and so he went in the desert and he got it and he set it up around there. And he said, Lisa, that's all I can do. I am not responsible for anything past what I just did right there. And it reminded me that that's us. We're responsible to do what we can. It may be $5, it may be 20, it may be nothing except a smile and a hug and what can I pray for you? But we need to be wary of looking and seeing what that looks like. In your handout, Matthew 25:31, but when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another as the goat separates from the sheep and the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on the right, "Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when we did see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" The king will answer and say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." Then he will also say to those on his left, "Depart from me, accursed, into eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat, and I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in, naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they themselves also will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you?" And he answered, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." These will go away into eternal punishment, for the righteous into eternal life. So what Donna said is that in 6 years, nobody stopped. Now, I go to a church that has 20,000 people in it. Okay, the majority of them live right in this area right here. And when she told me that, I thought, where is the church? And then I realized it was like, where am I? Like, I probably pass these people all the time and never once thought to stop about it. And so there's a lady that's been doing the panhandle thing up at Target. I don't know if anyone's seen her, and she's got dark hair, and she always has a kid with her, which totally infuriates me every time I see a kid. But after reading this, I went to find her. Like, I literally drove to Target and said, I'm going to find her because I'm going to ask her story and what I can do to help her, because suddenly she's not some lady panhandling. Now she's a lady who has a story that maybe her husband beats her and says, "Get out there and panhandle, and if you don't bring me $20 home for my drugs tonight, I'm going to beat you and the kids." We don't know what their backstory is. So we need to stop looking at people like Leper. And I'm saying this for me more than anyone here. You guys probably are all way more spiritual for what I'm talking about today. But for me, it was a great lesson for me to learn that I need to get a grip on this. So I tried to find a joke about homelessness. Okay, if you've ever tried to find one, there aren't very many out there. But I did find something that was kind of cute. A preacher saw a man who looked homeless sitting on a park bench, seemed to be in deep distress, so he passed by him, handed him a $20 bill and whispered, "Never despair, never despair." The next day, the preacher saw the man coming toward him, and hurriedly he gave him $60. The preacher asked, "What was the $60 for?" And he said, "You were right. Never Despair came in first yesterday, paying out 6-1 odds in the fourth race." Okay, that was kind of cute. Okay. But I think we have to look at in Jesus' day, what did people do? They threw rocks at these people, and we don't want to be that way. We want to be there, just like Jesus, that says, "Look, I want to help you. I want to run to you, not away from you." And it could be anything. And for everyone here, it could be something completely different. Did I write out the symbolic Easter story on there? Okay, good. I know we're not going to have a lot of time, but this was really, really an important story and I wanted to try to modify it, but it's too good to modify. So we're just going to read it, and I think it will give us an idea of what we're talking about today. Jim Cymbala, he's a preacher. He's a pastor of the Brooklyn Tabernacle in New York. He deals with homeless people all the time. That's what he does. That's who he is. That's their big people that come into their church. He says, Jim Cymbala preaches at a church in the slums of New York. He tells the following story. "It was Easter Sunday. He was tired. At the end of the day that I just went to the platform," I'm pretty sure I'm reading this and not rightly. Maybe I'll put on my glasses when I can see. I was so tired at the end of the day that I went to the edge of the platform, pulled down my tie, sat down, and draped my feet over the edge. It was a wonderful service with many people coming forward. The counselors were talking with these people. As I was sitting there, I looked up in the middle aisle, and there, in about the third row, was a man who looked about 50, disheveled, filthy. He looked up at me rather sheepishly as if saying, "Could I talk to you? We have homeless people coming in all the time asking for money or whatever." So as I sat there, I said to myself, though I am ashamed of it, what a way to end a Sunday. I've had such a good time preaching and ministering, and here's this fellow probably wanting some money for more wine. He walked up. When he got within 5 feet of me, I smelled a horrible smell, like I'd never smelled in my life. It was so awful that when he got close, I would inhale by looking away, and then I'd talk to him, and then I'd look away and inhale because I couldn't inhale facing him. I asked him, "What's your name?" "David." "How long have you been on the street?" 6 years. "How old are you?" 32. He looked 50, hair matted, front teeth missing, wino, eyes glazed. "Where did you sleep last night, David?" "Abandoned truck." I keep in my back pocket a money clip that also holds some credit cards. I fumbled to pick one out, thinking, I'll give him some money. I won't even get a volunteer. They're all busy. Usually we don't give money to people. We take them to get something to eat. I took the money out, and David pushed his finger in front of me, and he said, "I don't want your money. I want this Jesus, the one you were talking about, because I'm not going to make it. I'm going to die on the street." I completely forgot about David, and I started to weep for myself. I was going to give a couple of dollars to someone God had sent to me. See how easy it is? I could make the excuse, I was tired. There is no excuse. I was not seeing him the way God sees him. I was not feeling what God feels. But oh, did that change. David just stood there. He didn't know what was happening. I pleaded with God, "God, forgive me, please forgive me. I am so sorry to represent you this way. I am so sorry. Here I am with my message and my points, and you send somebody and I am not ready for it. Oh God." Something came over me. Suddenly I started to weep deeper, and David began to weep. He fell against my chest as I was sitting there. He fell against my white shirt and tie, and I put my arms around him, and there we wept on each other. The smell of his person became a beautiful aroma. Here is what I thought the Lord made real to me. If you don't love this smell, I can't use you, because this is why I called you where you are. This is what you are about. You are about this smell. Christ changed David's life. He started memorizing portions of Scripture that were incredible. We got him a place to live. We hired him in church to do maintenance. We got his teeth fixed. He was a handsome man when he came out of the hospital. They detoxed him in 6 days. He spent that Thanksgiving at my house. He spent Christmas at my house. When we were exchanging presents, he pulled out a little thing and he said, "This is for you." It was a little white hanky. It was the only thing he could afford. A year later, David got up and talked about his conversion to Christ. The minute he took the mic and began to speak, I said, "The man is a preacher." This past Easter, we ordained David. He's an associate minister of a church over in New Jersey. And I was so close to saying, "Here, take this. I'm a busy preacher." Because we can get so full of ourselves. I read that and I'm just like, that's me. Like, that's how I look at it. And I got to stop. I don't want to end my life like that. And I know that not all stories end like that. I would say 10 of them end like that, and 100 of them end with, "I'm just going to go back on the streets." But that's not for me to decide that. It's for God to decide that. So what do we do as Christians? I think we have to come to how we can help if possible. Now, Dusty told a joke the other day. This will be the tackiest, inappropriate joke I've ever told in here. So it's just weird, but there is a thing to it. So he said, someone wrote, a Japanese man was walking through a door, and an American opened the door for him. And as the Japanese man walked by, he said, "Thank you." And the American punched him in the face and said, "How could you bring up Pearl Harbor like that?" "Thank you." Yeah, okay. Okay, I know. It's bad. I get that, okay? And we started laughing. I was like, that is the tackiest joke. But, okay, there's a point to this, okay? If you actually knew somebody that lived through the whole Pearl Harbor thing, and you know someone who was in the military, any Japanese person that walked by you, you would have a hard time with. You would just automatically assume that they're all like that and they're all, bad Japanese people that bombed Pearl Harbor. And that's not the truth. But that's how we view things. If you were raised hating black people or Spanish people or white people or purple people or whatever, it doesn't matter. However you were raised, and we have to break that. We have to come back and say, Each person is a person that God created, just like you and I. And maybe they're from different backgrounds, and they don't have the money that you have, and they don't have the things that you have, and weren't raised like you were raised. And we have to start looking at people in a different light, that they're born where they're born, and there's nothing that they can do about it. I was watching a show last night, Crossing Jordan, and it's about a medical examiner in a morgue and all this, and they had 4 kids come in that were like, they're bad kids. They're going to be dead in 10 minutes from gang violence. Okay, they brought them in there because they wanted to show them what death was like. And sitting on the slab was this guy, and one of the kids just laughed, and he goes, "What's your problem? Envision your mom here." And he goes, "My mom will be there, and it's because she's a drug addict." Okay, and then it made all the sense in the world why this poor child acts this way. So we've got to start looking at people. What is their backstory? Why is that person standing on the street, homeless, panhandling for money? There's something there. And I want us to be compassionate women who stop at Target and say, "You know what? Jesus loves you. I love you. I can't give you any money, but can I pray for you?" That's all people want, is to be recognized. A hospital visitor one time saw a nurse tending to the sores of a leprosy patient and said, "I would never do that for $1 million. And the nurse said, "Neither would I, but I do it for Jesus for nothing." And I think that's what we have to do. We do things because we love Jesus, not to make ourselves feel better. I think that we are a nation of people caring about me. It's all about me. And Monday I woke up and I was kind of grumpy. And we couldn't get our website to work right. And I was feeling sorry for myself. And I was really sarcastic with one of my boys. It was really weird. I popped off and said something that I shouldn't, and I felt guilty. And so then I decided that I would go to lunch. And so I walked into lunch to feel sorry for myself even more, for no reason, whatever. I'm just a baby, I guess. And I decided as I sat there, normally I look around for people I can invite to Bible study or whatever. And I just sat there and said, "I'm not inviting anyone today. I don't want to. Just not going to do it, whatever, because my life is all about me." Okay. So as I'm sitting there, there's these 2 ladies sitting behind me. And all of a sudden I hear my church name. I hear everything. They're just, so I'm like, crap. Okay, whatever. So I got my card out and I go around the corner, and I know they think I'm a stalker or I'm just some person who's listening to what they're saying. So I couldn't help but notice, and I started saying, "We do this Bible study. I'd like to invite you, blah, blah, blah." And we had this long conversation, and it was so cool because when I walked out of there, I was happy. Because you know what I realized? I walked in there, and my life was about me. Or me. I walked out going, it's not about me. It's about Jesus. And I felt so much better about everything in life. And I think if we can look at people everywhere that we go and say, you know what? I want my life to be about them. Because we can be so, my marriage is bad, and my kids are bad, and my life is bad, and I don't have any money. Everything is about me. But I really think that the great thing what Jesus did is he went out. He went out. He didn't just sit in his little church. He went out to meet people and help people. And when he did that, it changed their life, and I think it changed the people around him because they saw Jesus in action. So I want to just leave today saying that I don't think that every homeless person you see that you need to just stop and throw money at, okay? I do think you need to pray. If God leads you to do that, I think that is something that you should do. But I think that what I learned from this whole thing with leprosy is that when a person had leprosy, it wasn't any fault of their own. They didn't do it. And yet they were treated so awfully. And I realized that as Christians, we have to change that. We have to say, I'm sorry that you had a bad life. I'm sorry for the things that you went to. I want to help you because that is what Jesus would run straight to them, and that's what we're going to see next week, that Jesus didn't sit around, just and ran from this guy. He literally went to him, put his hand on him, and healed him. Okay, in the awe of everyone else standing around, because it was illegal. Like, it was illegal for a leper to walk into a town. And yet this man, and I think it's so cool, he must have heard about Jesus. He must have heard, there's this guy that I heard about that heals people. And so he's going to take this chance, just like Peter did with the whole net thing. He's going to take a chance and he's going to walk in. And I love what he said when he said, if you are willing, you can make me clean. He's saying, God, if you I know you can do it, and if you're willing, would you do that for me? And I think that is the Jesus that we serve. He can do anything in our life. But it was just a reminder to me today that we need to look at people differently. And thank you, Donna, very much for doing that. And I'll catch up with you on how that all played out and everything. So anyway, I just wanted us to look at people differently. So.